Hello. Okay. So in this first video, we'll look at very quickly about C++ standard template library, or in short, STL. So I'm gonna give you a really quick interview so that you can start using the basic data structure called vector that we use when we worked on graph quickly today. So for more details on other data structure, I'll post more video later, and we'll get used to it as we practice on more problems. Okay, so STL is data structure and algorithm library for C++. If you use it, it will really be useful and for you when you write code. Um, we look at basically on containers. Okay, so this is the similar to data structures. Okay, for containers, there are a bunch of things: vector, list, array, queue, set, multiset, and map. These are binary search tree data structures, and you have hash tables here. But we look mostly on sequence containers. Basically, we look at vector today. But the idea that for vectors can be used with lists and other data structure as well. Um, we have many data structures so that it would the running time complexity of the data structure would fit your needs. So you should choose it really well. But today we will look at vector. Okay, it's basically an extensible array. When you use array, you need to specify the size of the array beforehand. In many cases, that's kind of hard. So if you use vector, you can basically ignore the size, and if you use it not in an appropriate way, the vector that you use has pretty much the same uh, time complexity as the usual array that we use. Okay, but you don't need to specify the size beforehand. Okay, so let's look at so the documentation is here. You can look at it, but I'm gonna go through it really quickly. Okay. Okay, so this is our old code. So the idea of the vector is that first of all, you want to use it, you need to include vector here. Okay, that's vector. Okay, and it's a template library. So that means that you can keep anything inside a vector, but you need to it's a template. Okay, so if you specify the type of an element inside a vector, it can it can uh, it can keeps it. Okay, so if you want to have a vector of int, so we can say vector int like that. If you don't use std here, you need to prefix the whole thing with std colon colon, but I'm gonna keep the namespace here so that you can write it shorter this way. Okay, so let's say we have a vector of int called a. So what can you use this vector? If you want to access the element in the vector, you can use it exactly as if it's an array. But if it doesn't have anything there yet, we need to push it to the back of the vector. Think of the vector as an extensible array. After you declare a vector like this, you have an empty array, so you cannot access any element inside the vector. Otherwise, it will crash. Okay. Now, if you remember this sorting algorithm that we have, so we want to read the number n of the elements in the that we want to sort. Okay, so here let me say so let's call it x, and we have array in a here. So you cannot just read into the vector, so we need to put in some variable first, and then we can add it at the end of the vector. Okay, recall that in the beginning the vector has nothing, So if you add something to the back of the vector, then it will keep it at the end of the array, basically. So you can say x dot pushback. This is the function name that you should remember. You remember it eventually because we use it so many times. So we say x dot pushback a, and that's it. So if you keep adding elements, so for example, if the element is 1, 2, 3, 4, in the beginning x would be like something like this. X would be equal to an empty array. So let me use the Python notation here. So if you add push back 10, so you get 10 here. If you push back 20, 20 will be there. You push back 3, 4, 100, 200, 13, 14. So the vector would look like that, okay? And inside the vector, internally, this element is kept inside an array. But you're not gonna see it this right away, right? But this is how it works. And you don't need to specify the size, because if you keep too many things inside the vector, the library would reallocate the array for you and move everything for you, okay? What you need to know is that when you call pushback, the running time of pushback is O1, is constant. It's not exactly constant, okay? Typically it will be constant, but if the internal array got filled out and it runs out of space, it will allocate a new array with a bigger size and move everything there. So in that call, it may take a lot of time, but if you average out all the running time, it will be O1. So you can use it without worrying too much about the running time, okay? So now, okay, so this is how you keep something inside a vector. You push back, okay? Typically, if you have a list, you can push front as well, and you'll see more of the function of this container later on. But the container, the vector, list, everything like that, we have a back and a front, okay? So a back is the end of the container, a front is the beginning of the container. When we use pushback, it will append the thing to the end of the container, okay? Now, how are you gonna access the element of the array? You can basically use access the vector as if it's an array like this. So you can say xi like that, and then it works. It works fine. So without calling sort, let's look at that, okay? So let's see how it runs. Okay, let's say we keep 10 elements there. 1, 2, 3, 5, 4, 100, 200, 100, 900, 1000, and it basically print everything for you, okay? So this is like exactly like an array. So you use a vector as if you have an array. So basically that's nice, okay? X a vector also have a property, has another member. So you can say x dot size. So that would return the number of element that you have. So let's run it again. So let's say 4, 1, 5, 3, 2. So it's say 4 here. Okay. So that's how you gonna use it, as if it's an array. Okay. But later on, you so the other thing you need to know about vector or other containers in STL is something called an iterator. Okay, an iterator, you can think of an iterator as a pointer to elements inside an array. Okay, if you have a vector of int, an iterator of that kind of vector is called vector int colon iterator. So this is a point. You can think of it exactly as if it's a pointer. Okay, a pointer to an element. Okay, so you can a container. Okay, so basically, if you wanna iterate through elements inside a vector or other kind of containers in STL, you can use iterators. Okay, so let's call it I. Okay, if you think of it as a pointer, okay, you can be given an array, right? You can have a pointer to the beginning of the array, and you can iterate through everything inside the, the the container this way. So for STL containers, if you want to access the first element inside the container, you call a method called a function called begin. So let's say let's do it like this: x.begin. Okay, so that's the first element. Now, if you want to print out, so you can do something like this: y I is not equal to. So let's say if you have an array, so you want to check if I is at the end of the array. Okay, so in STL standard, we have something called the end. Okay, so the begin is the first element, and is the pointer to an element after the last one. So x.n points to nothing, okay, but it points to something that is at the end, one element after the end. So if x is if x is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, like that. So this one is begin. Okay, x.begin points to this one, and x.n will point to this, not 5. Okay, it's point to somewhere after 5. So this is n. Okay, so this is the you see that this when you call sort, this will goes nicely with sort. Okay, so now let me try to print out using iterators. So I say cout I, like that. So this is like a pointer exactly, right? You let I point to the first element. Okay, if you want to access the data, use star I. So this is the dereference. Okay, and now you want to move to the next element. So let's say I plus plus, something like that. And then when I is at the last, if I go past the last element, so when it's equal to x dot n, so I stop. Okay, so this is the loop that is written in the other way. Okay, so let's run it to see if it works. Okay, let's say 5, 1, 2, and it just print the whole thing like that. Okay, so what you need to remember now is that an iterator is like a pointer, basically. Okay, so now let's call sort. So if you have an STL container, you can say something like this. As compared to previously, we call sort x plus n, right? X plus n is not the last element, right? It's not the pointer to the last element. It's the pointer to the one element after the last element. Same thing here. So we call sort x.begin, x.n, and you get it like. And it's sorted nicely this way. Okay. One last thing about vector is that the newer C++ has type inference. That means when I say x.begin, it's know that it's a vector int iterators, so you can say auto here. Okay, your code will be much shorter this way. Okay, so everything will compile and it works. Okay, so you don't need to remember iterators, stuff like that. You can just use auto. Okay, you even do something like this: auto I equals I is not oh, I need x begin here, right? Okay, so this is the while loop, right? You can do the whole thing again with the for loop this way: for auto I equals x dot begin, I is not equal x dot n, I plus plus, and then I say cout I. Okay, so this kind of format is something that you see again and again. Okay, so basically it's the same thing up there. Okay, and if you you should note that when you do this equals begin, and usually the condition will be I is not equal x dot n. Okay, so when I is at x dot n, and then that means you pass the last element. Okay, so let's run it again with the for loop. Okay, so it sort everything this way. Okay, so to conclude, to use a vector, you need to include vector here. Okay, and you say vector of something. Okay, this is a vector of an int. Okay, if you want to add stuff at the end called pushback, you can access element with as if x is an array. That's one way to do it, or you can use the iterator syntax, iterator functions. X dot begin, dot begin points to the is the pointer. You can think of begin as the pointer, or it's an iterator points to the first element, and x dot n or dot n point to the one element after the last one. Okay, so with the for loop you can like write it this way, and you can use, if you don't want to use auto here, you need to specify the whole thing, so that will be vector int colon colon iterator. But if you are lazy, just put on auto here, and then you're done. Okay, so I hope this gives you some now, so let's do some magic here. If you don't like vector, you can just change it to a list, and then you change this to list, and everything works fine because you use auto here, right? It will run exactly like before. Oh no, sorry. Oh, you cannot use sort. Oh, sorry. You cannot just sort the list with this function, but just if you don't use sort, and if you just keep elements, you can just use list. Okay, this will be a doubly linked list. Okay, and without changing any code, you can just change this from list to vector, and it will run fine because they both have the same interface. Okay, but you cannot pass list to sort because that requires some other function. Okay, all right. So this is if you want to read more about this, I'll post reference so that you can read it. Okay, you can see examples of the code here, from here, and other website as well. Okay, so that's it for vector. Okay, I'll post more. Oh, ผักเครื่อง okay, I'll post more on how to write a breadth first search and graph algorithms in the next video.